One of the most important things for an artist to be creative is to have your own space. I feel like if you have your own space away from all the people around you, that's when you can really unfold your imagination and get in touch with yourself. So what we're going to do today is we're going to create a space of your own. One of the things I do when I sit down is I want to get into the mood. And you're not just going to start working the moment you sit down. You want to start exploring your mind. You want to check in with yourself. You want to just get in touch a little bit with your feelings. How do you feel right now? Once you're kind of like in touch with yourself, just explore a little bit where your mind is going. I usually have some stuff around me that I like to play with, that I like to look at. Also look at your materials. We're going to be doing most of the work today with a pencil. And that's basically it. We're going to be doing a pencil drawing, so all you need is like a soft pencil. It might be handy for you to have a ruler, and it's good to have one of these micron pens. You can pick those up pretty much anywhere. Any arts and crafts store would have them, or even like an office supply store. That's going to be the first part, just kind of like the drawing elements, the basic drawing elements here. We're also going to color in our drawing, and for that we're going to be using some colors. I like to just sit down and look at my materials. Some of the materials that you might want to work with when you are coloring the drawing are colored pencils or crayons or watercolors. Watercolors come in tubes, but they also come in little cakes. In little sets like this, and you might have one of those at home. For this drawing, really just work with what you have. And if you have watercolors, you're also going to need some water. I like carrying my water around in a little marmalade glass, and if you have a marmalade glass, that's really handy because you can also put a lid on it so that you don't tip it over and create a mess on your surface. It's good to have a variety of brushes. I like some of these like oval brushes, a round brush, maybe a square brush. Let's just try out some of our colors here. If you have one of these like floppy brushes, think about this actually, just like go through what you find in your house. Often your parents have stuff in the garage, maybe your dad repairs cars, or paints a fence or something. So you might have really interesting brushes just lying around in the garage. Try that out. Try your colors out a little bit. What colors do you like? Think about this. What colors do you like? What's on your mind right now? I like this blue. Colored pencils work really well also with watercolor. So this is really fun. Just looking to see what you have. These are crayons that you can use with water, and you can mess them up a little bit. And as you start doing this, you're going to get into this flow where you just want to continue. And maybe your thoughts are going to go in different directions in different places. And I'm starting to use a lot of blue here, so I think my thoughts are going in the direction of the ocean. Okay. So at this point, you're kind of like ready to do a little bit of drawing. And today we're going to draw a space, a place that you can call your own. What is that place? What is that space? Once you're like in this mood of creating something, what comes up? What kind of thoughts, what kind of ideas come up? What kind of memories come up? The space could be your grandmother's house, and it could be, some people like a car. It could be your bedroom. It could be a memory that you have of a place you went to in the vacations. You might want to travel there. I love living at the coast, and for me, the most amazing thing is spaces that open up to the outdoors. I'm really interested in indoors, outdoors living. So the place that I'm going to be drawing for you today is going to be one that combines indoor and outdoor aspects. Sometimes it helps to kind of just look around if you're looking for creativity. Look at journals, look online, think about your life. What kind of life would you want to live? How would your hallway look? What kind of clothes would you have there? What kind of coat hanger? What kind of couches? I think it's really powerful to imagine the ideal place for you and what this ideal place would give you. Your place could be a starship. It could be a fighter plane. It could be a garden. It could be a terrace. Once you've decided what kind of place you want to create, we're going to start sketching it out. Now, I like this kind of like outdoorsy space that is half house and half lawn or half seascape. So for me, the ideal place would be one where I could move between inside and outside without any walls or barriers. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to draw a terrace or a house that opens up to the Pacific. The space that I'm going to be creating today for you, or with you, is going to be one that opens out on the beach. You have your pad here, and we're going to be creating this space today with a technique that's called linear perspective. Linear perspective is just a technical device. It's a technical way of creating an optical illusion of depth on a single white piece of paper. This is your piece of paper and it just looks flat, but once we start using linear perspective, the page is going to open up for us and it's going to contain our world. The first step here is that you need to create a horizon line. Now the horizon is just the limit of your eyesight, and it can be high, it can be low, and I'm just going to create this horizon line pretty much in the middle of the page. The next step is you need to decide on a vanishing point. Now in linear perspective, all lines that are moving away from you converge at the vanishing point. This can be anywhere, you can choose it for yourself. But it's going to determine how objects appear because all of these objects are going to be converging at the vanishing point. So what I have in mind is, and I'm imagining this here on the white page. You don't see anything right now, but what I'm imagining is a beach, maybe some cliffs, and a house that opens up onto the beach. I think that would be kind of ideal. Now, let's just draw the limits of this house. And this would be a horizontal line. And this would be the limits of the house. This would be the far limit of your house. For me, this far limit is also going to be a terrace. And just keep in mind, I'm imagining these things as I go along. I'm imagining that there's a house here and that I'm going to be drawing this house. And that this is going to be part of a terrace that I'm going to be standing on. Now, in order to build this terrace in space, what you do is you connect the edges of this line that you've drawn to the vanishing point. And then you connect the vanishing point with a point on the edge. And you basically have the space opening out on you. And we'll do the same on the other edge. When you're drawing lines like this, it's okay to kind of move the paper a little bit so that you get a straight line. And you can just sketch it in a little bit first to kind of get an idea for the direction. Then you can go a little bit harder, put a little bit more pressure on the line, and there you go. Now, drawing a straight line can be very difficult. I just am going to say we're not going to be architects here. We're going to be people who imagine things. We're going to be artists. So a wavy line is fine. But if you want your drawing to look really neat, just use the stainless steel ruler. And you can actually check these lines to see if they're okay. And you can do the same line, but you can use the ruler for that. I'm not going to do that because I want my drawing to be more fluid. And if it has a little bit of a warp or like a little bit of a skew to it, I feel like that kind of like just expresses me. That's my body expressing itself on the page. And I think that's fine because this is my space. And nobody's going to tell me how to express myself on my page. And you should feel the same way about your page. This is your space. Okay, so we have the terrace, and you can already see that you might be standing on this. And these lines converge to the horizon. Now let's build the rest of the house. How far do you want your terrace to be opening out on the ocean? We're going to decide this as we go along, and we're also going to decide how much space we want where. This is going to be, these are the wall of the house that faces the ocean, and I'm going to cover this wall with glass. How high is it going to be? It's going to be, I would say, about this height. And again, you're just going to connect the vanishing point with the edge of the far wall of the house. And you're going to draw this as far as you want to go. Do you see how there's a geometric space opening up here? A geometric space where you could walk? I want my terrace also to have a roof because you get too much sun, you've got to have a little bit of shade as well. So we'll have some shade. So there's also going to be a roof. And let's see how far that goes out. Maybe this far. Again, you can draw these converging lines. A converging line are lines that intersect, right? And these lines all intersect at the vanishing line, at the vanishing point. You can draw these very light to start off with, and then you can make them, you can apply more pressure as you go along. We're also going to use a black pen. It's a micron pen, and you can get those at any hobby store to make the lines a little bit darker later on. But for now, we're just going to stay with pencil. How far are these lines going to go? How big is your house going to be? I think I'm just going to like have the house kind of move beyond, and it's actually going to like envelop the whole space. So you might not really recognize this yet, but this is a terrace, this is a wall of glass, this is an overhanging roof, and here's the ocean. And the ocean is basically going to be completely facing this house. The next thing you might want to do is put some windows in this house. Now this is the windowed wall, and you can subdivide this wall with glass windows. You do that by just drawing parallel lines here. These windows are parallel to the walls, so the edges of these windows are going to be parallel to them too. Increase the distance a little bit. This is called foreshortening. As objects move closer to you in space, they become bigger. You can try that right now. You can look at your hand and see how big it is in front of your face, and then you can move it away and it becomes smaller. And it's the same in linear perspective. Things become smaller. There's a way to construct it, but today we're just going to eyeball it. And we're just going to make these windows bigger as they come closer to us. You can always just also eyeball it. It's your space. You make your own decisions here. I'm not telling you how to do things, I'm just showing you a couple of techniques. I'm still thinking about how wide I want my terrace to be, and I'm just thinking I want my terrace actually to be a little bit wider. And so make these adjustments as you go along. Decide on these, on the architecture of your space as you go along. Feel your way. I really believe that most of drawing, most of the visual arts is really about feeling. I think feeling your way in the space is, it's not just about seeing something, it's about really feeling it. I'm going to make like a little barrier here. Again, drawing lines like this, straight line in the diagonal, might be difficult for you. So at this point, I would just also check and see where the line runs with a ruler. This is starting to look nice. This is a nice open space. I have a lot of space here for myself. And I can look out over the ocean. And this is kind of how I would want to live in a perfect world. Or in the world of my choice, in my fairy tale world. Now this is a wall of glass. And I would want to have a wall of glass here because when I get up in the morning, I would want to look out over the ocean. There's something really just very deep about the connection to the ocean. Maybe it's because human beings originally did come from the ocean. You know, we all evolved from ocean creatures. Ocean creatures that slowly moved onto land over the millennia. And we have a deep connection to the ocean that brought us into this world. Getting back to that is magical. Okay, so this is the end. This is the wall of the house here, and you want to take away the horizon line because the wall of the house continues on the inside. So this is going to be the inside of the house that we can see through the glass wall. And this is the farthest wall here of the house. So this is the internal space. This is the terrace. And this is the railing that keeps us from falling into the ocean. So this is quite nice. Now you have an internal space. These windows, imagine them as sliding doors. They slide back and forth. And maybe there's some windows here that allow you to look beyond the wall. And I like horizontal windows. I like long horizontal windows because they follow the horizon. You know, when we look left to right, we kind of scan. This is what we do as human beings. We scan left to right, or right to left. And windows that are horizontal rather than vertical actually pay tribute to that. They actually respond to how we look as human beings. So I'm going to make, this is on the back wall of the house, I'm going to make this long row of horizontal windows. And this is very common in Californian houses, Californian modern houses. A lot of these ideas actually are based on architectural history of Californian modernism. And these houses were built to work together with the environment and with the landscape. And they were intended to provide a space for the inhabitants, for the people who lived there, to interact with the ocean, with the mountains, with the rolling canyons here. So these are houses that are meant to be open and that open out onto nature. Okay, this is already looking kind of cool. What are we going to do with the internal space here? I think probably I would have a couch on the internal space, on the inside here, so that when it's cold and dark at night, I could sit on the couch and look out at the foam on the waves. Let's say, where would that couch be? I would set it back a little bit. Think about these things as you move around in your own space. This is your own space. You can create whatever space you want to. All you need is really a vanishing point and a horizon line, and you can make whatever space you want to. These are your decisions. You're going to furnish your space just any which way you want to. Okay, so we have an inside, we have an outside. What do you want to do on this terrace? What do I want to do on this terrace? I think I would like to have some chairs where you can lie down. And the system here is really the same. You just continue to draw the farthest edge of the object that's farthest away from you. Just draw the outline of that. And then you connect the edges of that outline back to the vanishing point. And it's like magic. And automatically you're creating a three-dimensional object in that space. The question is, where's this house located? This is kind of like a bay, and I'm imagining cliffs. I'm actually imagining cliffs here. If you're in San Diego, one of the most amazing shorelines is Torrey Pines. And these cliffs, they run out towards the ocean, and then they kind of like drop into the Pacific. And there's these places where you can walk down to the beach and make for great walks. And that's really kind of like a place where it would be wonderful to live. At this point, you're just drawing a landscape, and you're drawing mountains that fall into the ocean. Kind of meet the ocean here, and there's surf on the ocean. As the cliffs move away from you, they get smaller. So think about that also. Think about making them a little bit smaller as they move towards the horizon. This, again, is called foreshortening. And foreshortening basically, as I said earlier, refers to the fact that objects that are closer to you seem bigger than objects that are farther away from you. Okay, so here we have a little beach, and maybe there's some houses in the beach. Let's get to that later. You can keep track of the horizon, of the vanishing point here, but let's just like make it a little bit smaller. Also, these cliffs now are in front of the horizon. The horizon is actually back then. So what you want to do is you want to erase that horizon line, because now there's objects in front of it. We're going to fill this in, and we're going to keep it loose and focus on atmosphere rather than being perfect or correct. Now let's just take a break here, because we just created a space in single point perspective, and it's looking kind of cool. We have the ocean here, we have the sky here. There might be some clouds, we'll see. There's also some waves, some surf here. Going to have a beach line. There might be some houses in the distance, but we're not going to get hung up on this. This is the side of the hill. And you can like indicate the side of the hill with shadows, a little bit of shadow here, a little bit of shadow here. So we're looking at this drawing, and we've created a drawing here that is equal parts outside and equal parts inside, and in the middle, inside and outside come together. So as we continue with this drawing, what I want you to think about is how the outside and the inside, how they speak to each other, how they relate to each other. And there might be, here we have some shadow, right, because there might be some sun here. You still have your little vanishing point here, so if you want to indicate the shadow, you can still use that vanishing point. So this is going to be in the shade. There might be some reflections here in the glass of the ocean. We might see reflections here. And that's one way that inside and outside can connect. Another thing that I think is fun to think about is, what would you actually be doing if you lived in that space? You've created your space now, but what would your ideal life be like? What would you do when you get up in the morning? What would you do when you have lunch? What do you do after lunch? Just think about your day. No, I'm actually not kidding. Just like immerse yourself in this other world. Drawing and painting are ways to remind you that there are other worlds, that there are other places for you to live in. And these can be in your mind, but they can also be in the future or in the past. Or they can be happening right now at different parts, somewhere else in the world. We're not rooted in this one place. If you have imagination, if you have creativity, you can travel anywhere, and you can be anywhere at any time. That's the magic of art. The next step in this drawing that we're going to be doing is we're going to start coloring it. Because at this point we have the whole space, we have an indoors and outdoors, and now we want to set the mood. With colors, you can set the mood. Colors can follow the outlines. They can be local color. Now, local color is what we call color that is basically the color of the object. This object here is orange, and orange is its local color. But color can also be not local. This color is not local. This is expressive. This is just me trying out colors. So when we add color to this, we're going to do a mixture of local color, because I want my surfboard to be purple. The sky is going to be blue, but we're also going to play around a little bit with color to kind of explore the tactility, the taste, the feeling of these colors. I'm going to be using watercolor. We might use some colored pencils as well. The way I would suggest that you set yourself up if you have some watercolors is take a piece of paper, a good piece of thick paper, and just lay it down as a place where you can mix colors. It's like a palette. It functions like a palette. But we don't really need a fancy palette. And then you have your water, of course, and you have your various brushes. And we're going to start with really washy brushes, and then we're going to add some details. So the type of brushes you might want to have is, these are old brushes, right? And this is the type of brush I was talking to you about. Your dad might have that in the garage. He might have painted the garage door or touched up some furniture, and he didn't throw out the brushes. So this doesn't have to be a fancy brush. It just has to have like, just be, have a lot of, be able to hold a lot of water. This is such an old brush that it's also losing, it's losing its hairs, but it doesn't matter. What you want is something that's nice and thick, right? And this is kind of like a medium thickness. It's a mop. It has kind of like an oval shape. You can do that for smaller details. And then we're going to also be using a small round brush to start to create different like details. But let's just create just like a little bit of a wash here. And we have a blue sky, we have a blue ocean, we have reflections, we have a terrace. So let's just start applying some of these colors. And let's not be too finicky about this. I believe that the best way to approach color is light. Start light and move from light to dark. And just start loose and then get more detailed. So light to dark and loose to detailed. And we're just going to like create a little bit of a blue background here. I wouldn't fill it completely in. I would be very loose with it. And I would just leave it kind of like very liquidy at this point. Okay? One of the things to do with color is to move slowly. If you move too fast, it's not a good idea. I'm looking for some cast over colors. A brown and blue mixture actually works really well as kind of like a color wash. To just outline the spaces, just so that we have the spaces. And we'll do everything exact later, so we're just going very light. We're just going very light at this point and trying to get some values, light and dark. Where is it light? Where is it darker? This is going to be darker. I also think it's good not to add too much color in the beginning, because we can always go darker. It's really hard to go lighter, but it's easy to go darker. And I'm just basically coloring in these walls. You might have noticed that I'm just staying within a blue-brown mixture. We're going to add local color later. We're going to like distinguish various colors. But this gives us an idea of just the structure of the space. When you decide on your colors and you're creating a space like this, an indoor-outdoor space, it really makes sense to just pick a couple of colors. Don't go overboard with all kinds of like greens and yellows in the beginning. I'm liking how this is drying, and I'm looking forward to doing something with that. Now this is where it's going to be the darkest, because that's where the shade is. We're also going to have some shade here at the edge of the painting. Might be a little bit of a beach, so we can add a little bit of a beach color here, not too much. A lot of what we're doing right now is also creating, and you see I use the paper towel to blot the paper. In atmospheric perspective, the colors that are farthest away from you start to look very similar. And they start to coalesce and almost have the same value. And the colors that are closer to you are very strong. So when you're working in the background, try to keep the colors very light. Very light. And if you have too much color, just use a paper towel and blot it a little bit. So what we're going to need is we're going to need detail. But for that, you're going to have to let this color dry. And then once it's dry, you can start painting over it. In the meantime, one of the things I'm going to do is these towels are going to have beautiful patterns. And let's see, let's create some patterns. Now, if a towel has a pattern, it kind of follows the folds. This is going to be like a striped towel, but you can also have other stripes lengthwise. And this is going to create an attractive pattern. And this pattern is going to also correspond a little bit to the surfboard, because these are the things that speak of beach life, I guess, beach life. And I'm going to actually just see if I can find a good purple for my surfboard. I think I like this purple. And we can start to just put some local color here on the surfboard. Now, if you watch color in real life, it's never just flat. It always shifts with the sun. So similarly, when you put down a color like that, maybe mix it with some other colors. And I think actually a blue would look very cool here. And as you just paint with both of these colors, the hue shifts a little bit. And that shifting hue gives you an idea that this is an object. Let's look at the water a little bit. Now this is the ocean. This is dried kind of, so we can start working with that. Think about where the waves break. Think about where the water is coming in. Might get some reflection here. And try to mix up some watery colors. Turquoise is obviously a good idea. But I wouldn't make it too strong. I might even add a little bit of gray to it. If you add a little bit of gray. And then let's just have the water coming in on the sides. And what I suggest that you do is use these washy colors that we have underneath, just as a background. And here's your palette. Use the paper as your palette. And add a little bit of gray to that. And just have the tide coming in here a little bit. Very thin lines. Have the tide coming into shore. colors shift a little bit here, so you might just want to like add some different colors as well. Get a little bit different reflections. I don't know what your space is going to be like, but using this technique where you start with a really broad brush and then you add the detail later is really effective to just create both a sense of atmosphere and a sense of texture. I think that's kind of what we're after. We want to create a little bit of atmosphere and also texture. And kind of do that with the cliffs as well. Now, one of the things that we have is we have a juxtaposition of nature and inside. And I already said that the brush strokes for the inside are going to be vertical and horizontal because that kind of follows, that gives us an impression of architectural regularity. So we're just going to kind of continue doing this. Also, you remember you're watching this, the inside of the house is seen through glass. And glass has a way of distorting what we're looking at. So let's just continue doing the inside with horizontal and vertical stripes as a way of separating them, separating the inside space from the outside space. Now for the deck chairs, we're going to actually also use a we're going to use something else. At this point we're going to go for some pencil. Just to try out these different colors. And this is can also put a little bit of watercolor on that, but for now, let's get this material in here. Deck chairs are made of wood, and I'm just thinking that that's some bold color pencil is going to pull it together and just give it a little bit of that wooden feel. Now what we really want to do is we want to focus one more time on the sky. And give the sky a little bit of texture here. Give it a little bit of reflection maybe of the ocean. This is starting to look like a place where I wouldn't mind waking up, where I wouldn't mind spending an afternoon. It's starting to look like a place of your own. So basically this is your space, and you can make with it whatever you want. And nobody's going to tell you what to do with this space. Nobody's going to tell you what space this is supposed to be. You just make it yourself. It's fantasy, and we can do what we want in our fantasy. At this point, basically, the drawing is done. And I hope you like spending some time in this space. I hope you enjoyed spending some time in this space. This is your space. I hope you had fun